Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I've been playing a lot of VR lately. Mainly because the Oculus Quest is not only a fantastic headset to just pull out and jump in and go, but because there's a lot of really good games on it, and a lot of like really well done ports. The only one that's been massively disappointing so far is Onward, and even then, that's not because of the Oculus Quest version, but that's probably because of the fact that they actually downgraded the PC version. Who would have thought? Who would have thought they would have done that? That's crazy. But anyway, there was a big sale recently, the Quest Summer Sale, where I bought like a ton of freaking games. But despite all that, I'm still playing In Death, because In Death is fantastic, so I figured I'd do a video on it. I do apologize for the quality of the video footage, because not only am I absolutely terrible once the camera starts rolling, but I have to have like 2 cables hanging off my headset in order to successfully record video from the Quest, and there's always going to be that tear across the screen. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just a problem with the Quest's recording software. And because I've got 2 cords hanging off it, it means that it's actually kind of difficult to play the game anything other than seated. So there'll be a couple of things that I can't react to as quickly as I normally would because, well, I'm sitting down and I've got the cords hanging off the headset. Like, the thing that kills me in the very end, if I was able to react quicker, I would have survived it. But frankly, I got further in this run than I've ever gotten, so I'm not going to complain too much about it. So, In Death. In Death is an archery roguelike game set in what appears to be heaven slowly falling apart into hell. At least that's what the general idea is. You'll notice when I start getting into the later levels why I got that sort of feeling about it. You are an unnamed holy archer, and you just have to survive, more or less. There are enemies around every corner. You have either a crossbow or a regular old-fashioned longbow. I think it's just a bow, actually. I'd be lying if I said I could tell the difference. And you just have to try and survive for as long as possible. And there are all sorts of enemies all over the place. In fact, the enemy density can be a little bit ridiculous, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. The thing about In Death is that it actually starts out really slowly. And if you're a person who goes for like the really first impressions, like if you play like the first run of this game and see that there's only like 7 or 8 enemies in the first level, you might think to yourself that it's a bit of a boring game. But you give it a couple of games, you unlock a few achievements, and they start swarming the fucking place. It is legitimately ridiculous how many fucking enemies they throw at you. You can teleport into a random room, and you'll have like 20 enemies just on all sides ready to swarm you. It's legitimately ridiculous, but at the same time, it's legitimately great. Because once you get used to it, it means that you're going to have a ton of fun just popping into a room, turn, splat in the head, turn, splat in the head, teleport out. Everyone follows you out. You draw an explosive arrow, fire it right at the door, and watch as the slow motion of 5 bodies flying backwards just instantly captivates you as to the combat. Because, man, it is so enjoyable once you get going. The arrows are very hard to aim, and that's probably my biggest criticism with the game, is that there is no auto-aim whatsoever. And you might think, well, that's a good thing, because you want to be playing this game, like, you want to be playing this as assist-free as possible, because it's an archery game, but there are some situations that pop up where, like, I admit that my hand's trembly and auto-aim would probably help me the most, but there are some situations that pop up where you're constantly shooting at the dude, and one arrow will go to the left, one will go to the right, another one to the left, another one to the right, 2 to the left, 2 to the right, and then you'll finally hit him on the 9th shot. And it's like, there's a difference between me being shit and that just being stupid, especially when you see me, like, hit 3 headshots in a row from a relatively decent distance. And it's like, man, you're kind of being shit with, like, these arrows going to the left and right so much. Just a little bit of auto-aim to correct me even after I've missed like 7 or 8 shots would be really nice. Also, that heartbeat sound is actually way louder than it should be. It isn't as bad when you're playing it in the headset, but I had this going through my speakers, listening to the video, just making sure the footage was alright, and yeah, it's kind of loud. I do apologize for that, but you're going to have to deal with that for a while, because, yeah, I still suck. That is still something that exists, but I really do wish that there was at least a little bit of sway when it came to the arrow aim. Just a little bit. Just enough to give me a little bit of a break when I miss like 8 shots in a row. So you might have noticed that, considering this is a VR game, it needs a form of locomotion of some sort. And the method that they've gone and picked here is something thoroughly unique. So when you press the A button on the Oculus Quest controller, it loads up a teleport arrow. And when you fire that arrow, you teleport to where the arrow lands. Combine that with free locomotion and a shard that you can use while using the grip button and throwing it in a particular direction, and you have a ridiculous amount of range of motion here, and it's actually really satisfying to use. Whether it be firing off a really quick shot over a really long distance to escape from a bad situation, or throwing a teleport shard to the left and right to do little dashes in and out. It makes locomotion in this game really sweet. And you'd think that free locomotion would break it, because some of the enemies will need a very specific close range in order to actually attack you. But excuse me, Jesus. But the free locomotion is just slow. It's pretty damn slow. Some people will probably be frustrated with how slow it moves you, but me, I can see the reason why if it was any faster, it would probably break the game. So it makes sense as to why it's so slow. Kind of annoying, but it's understandable why, because if you're able to just continuously back away from an enemy melee attack, it would make the game really easy. Also, I've noticed that you can actually use the teleport arrow to not only hit an enemy in the head, but you can also teleport to their position and then follow it up with an arrow to the face. Because it's just immediately satisfying that way. I have no idea how I didn't die here. I took 3 hits in a row because I'm retarded. But I still made it work. So there are plenty of mechanics going on in this game. And some of them I haven't experienced yet. And there's a reason for that. The way that unlocks in this game in particular works is that the game has got a ridiculous amount of achievements. Everything from killing a certain amount of enemies, and this certain amount of enemies can get into the thousands, to finishing levels really quickly, to performing specific feats like hitting a headshot over a long distance. These feats will unlock extra mechanics, whether they be more enemies, whether they be more enemy types, whether they be special side objectives, whether they be new arrow types. And as I said, as a result, the game can start out a little bit slow, but eventually you'll have half a dozen arrow types, half a dozen types of enemies in different forms. Eventually you will need to start worrying about side levels that you can get extra pickups on, and you will eventually have a mechanic called orphans. But considering how long that I've played this game for, I haven't actually managed to unlock any orphans yet. Apparently you need to finish at least 1 hit of... I can't remember what it's named because they have like 3 different names for the things and it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, you need to like finish a particular pit level without taking a single hit in order to unlock orphans relatively early. And it feels kind of weird to have a mechanic like that locked so far behind the achievements. Extra arrow types, enemy types, and maybe even enemy density I can understand, but it just feels a bit weird to have something that's so visibly highlighted on the scoreboard at the very end of the game be locked behind achievements like that. Everything else makes sense though, and it gives the game plenty of longevity, because even as you're killing enemies, you're unlocking damage boosts, you're unlocking new different types of arrows, you're unlocking new kinds of basically everything. And it gives the game a lot of length. It gives the game a lot of longevity, allowing you to unlock so much as you go along. Seriously, and they also check your progress via achievements. So yeah, you'll see just how much of the game you've completed over the beginning of the Sanctuary as you begin the game. And there's also high score seeking, because of course there is. There are 3 major areas in the game split apart by checkpoint towers, and thankfully if you feel like the game's taking a bit too long, you can go and just rest immediately at the towers. And you can just like take the headset off and quit the game and play it again later, which is a nice touch they didn't actually have in the PC version. There's a lot they didn't have in the PC version actually, because this version of the game's got this weird-ass story where the original developer was like, I don't want to work on this anymore, so an entirely new studio with the people who originally made In Death, except for like the main lead guy, formed, and they made a brand new port, which actually has more stuff in it than the PC version, and is, admittedly, it's actually a hell of a lot better to play just because you've got that freedom of motion that that the Quest gives you. Again, I'm sorry I can't show this off. I don't have a way to wirelessly capture audio, and I don't want to risk destroying my computer by recording footage more freely. Not to mention, like, dropping my controllers or something like that. But yes. There is a ton of content, including a ton of different kinds of arrows. My personal favorite, as you will see later on when I have like 60 of them, is the Cupid's arrow, which homes in and explodes. You've also got exploding arrows, shotgun arrows, burning arrows, arrows that create nothing but lightning, which was an absolutely fantastic way to cheese the first boss. You do also have the roguelike style thing of being able to start at later levels once you've completed a certain amount of the achievements, which is a nice little thing. At first, I thought the Abyss was like an extra, like, infinite mode or something like that, but no, it's just a shortcut. Yeah, it's just the one mode. I was hoping there was like a infinite mode or something like that, maybe like a wave defense mode, just to give the game a little bit extra, like, stuff to do, but considering there's enough to do in the game already, it's not that big of a deal. I just thought I'd bring it up. And yes, the actual arrow action is satisfying. The hit sounds is a very satisfying clunk, depending on the enemy type. Hitting an enemy in the head will give you a stagger, a very enjoyable stagger. And as I was saying, all the different kinds of arrows that you can use that really add to the strategy, including, like, as I said before, shotgun arrows, fire arrows, ice arrows, explodey homing arrows, explodey bouncy arrows, because everything needs to explode. And yeah, my personal favorite is the one that homes in on people and explodes. But what else is worth mentioning is that the game is fucking gorgeous. In both graphics and sound. So just overall in presentation, the game is freaking gorgeous. Like, they've got a ton of enemies on screen, which is on screen, I should say. It's not really screen, in headset, because that's going to be a term that's going to be outdated now, isn't it? But yeah, not only is there a ton of enemies, but the environments themselves are really well constructed pieces of, like, I don't want to say, like, I don't claim to know enough about, like, Catholic structures to say whether or not this is Catholic, but, you know, just general, stereotypical Christian chapel structures that ever so slowly start falling to shit as time goes on. It is gorgeous! And they've got this soundtrack going on as well with, like, this holy choir and these little ditties that come in every now and again once you hit, like, the rest areas and in the boss fights and what have you. It's all just really, really well done. And it's just gorgeous just to sit there. Like, man, I wish they would make, like, a quest environment for In Death Unchained. Just so when you're on the home screen, you can be in the middle of one of these chapels with a bunch of enemies surrounding you and just having, like, the guy just standing there aiming a bow, aiming 2 crossbows either way. That would be fantastic. But I don't think they've opened that up to developers officially yet. I know there's unofficial ones, but I wouldn't know how to make this happen officially. But man, that would be great. Because it legitimately just looks amazing. You can tell they put a lot of effort into it. Admittedly, the PC version looks better, but like that's no surprise. But this still looks fantastic for the quest. The amount of effort that they've put into it is undeniable. I can still hear the goddamn heartbeat, even though I'm supposed to... I thought I had the volume at 0%, but no, I can still hear the goddamn heartbeat in my subwoofer. That's, Oh man, I do apologize for subjecting you to that, but that's just kind of what you have to hear. It would be unfair if I found some way to take that out. Although there might be a way in the sound. I don't think there is a way in the sound actually. But yes, tons of enemies, tons of unlockables, a fantastic level of presentation, satisfying as hell combat when you just manage to hit an enemy in the face and they just fucking tumble over. Like, their brain just ceased to exist. The physics on the ragdolls are really good. Just watching them fall backwards off the edge is great. Especially later on when you get to the bloody little tiny-ass Cupid dudes that fire 2 arrows at once. Those guys are even more fucking satisfying to beat the absolute shit out of. Because they're so tiny that when you get a hit on them, they just evaporate, and it's great. And there are a couple of other enemy types too that are really interesting. Like you've got the Ghost, which takes no damage unless you hit it dead in center mass, at which point it just dies instantly. That's fun to deal with, especially when you've got 3 of them bearing down on you at once and you're using a fucking bow. Hell, there's even a little bit of a difference between the crossbow and the bow. The bow can do more damage on average, but you have to be pulling it back all the way in order to pull that off. Me, personally, I'm more of a fan of the rapid reload that the crossbow gives you, which is why I use it as much as I do. And you can kind of understand why when you see me panic later on in this gameplay footage. But yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. It's really well put together. It's got some fantastic bow combat. It looks great. It has some really nice like sound bites that come in every now and again of the choir. There's a ton of different enemies to fight. They managed to fit a ton of them in. Like apparently there's more than the PlayStation VR version, which just blows my mind. How do you even make that happen? Oh, and there's one other thing I should point out as well. This game came out back in, this game came out on July 24th. It is, as of this recording, August 13th. And there's been so many updates. There's been like 5 updates. Excuse me. There's been like 5 updates since the game came out. All fixing bugs, adding minor new features. And there's even one that is like there was a full-on archery contest in like the first week, and the people who got the highest scores are now embedded in like a tablet in the sanctuary area, which is an awesome touch. Just, if they keep this kind of support up, or even just like half this level of support, man. If they keep up half of this level of support, it will continue to be a great game for a good length of time. And yeah, it's a great game now. It is absolutely worth the money. It's a shame that they don't have like a PC version that's been updated with all the new stuff and the balance changes and what have you, but you know, that's just kind of what happens, I suppose. My guess is like the reason they were able to release Unchained in the first place is because there was some kind of like contract stipulation that was like, we get to do this for the PC. And then the Quest came out, which is absolutely not PC. And it's like, oh, fuck, we get to do that now, don't we? But yeah. A ton of fun. Really freaking hard. Tons to do, though. Wholeheartedly recommended. I bought this on launch day for its launch price, which was like $46.99 Australian. Which comes up to like $30 US, $40 US maybe. And it is absolutely worth that price. I'm going to be playing this for a while. Considering that I've got like 5 other VR games I need to get through on this headset, that's probably not a good thing. But, I mean, oh well. If I'm having fun, what else matters, right? This has been Blue Maxima. I'll let you watch the rest of this run. I'll see you all next time.